How you guys doing today? It's Thursday, sorry, here in Minnesota. So it's Thursday evening in Europe. And it's probably middle of the night over in the Far East. So morning, evening, good night to all you people. Welcome to the channel. My name is Dan, the Jazz Shepherd. Got a bit of a dry throat right now. Uh, Probably all right. Today I'm going to do something a little out of the ordinary. I'm going to talk about something not jazz related. I'll probably add something jazz at the end of this episode, depending how long this goes. But I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of Tears for Fears back in the '85 when Big Chair blew up. I was listening to Motley Crue in '85 and Rat and Wasp, just discovering Metallica, Ride the Lightning, and Master of Puppets. That's where I was. I was a young, 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid. Tears for Fears was everywhere. And as a kid in Canada, I'd wait up at night, sometimes on the weekends, for videos to come on TV. Like I think it was 11:30 or something. They came on Much Music or something like that, and just dying for a Motley Crue video. Give me some Shout the Devil. I mean, I'll take Smoking the Boys if that's all you got, but give me some Shout the Devil. That's what I wanted. That was my favorite record as a kid. Motley Crue, Shout the Devil, and instead it would be Tears for Fears, Shout, Let It All Out, and I kind of almost hated it at the time, being who I was and where I was coming from and what my experiences were. However, as goes on, your tastes change and you evolve. And I kind of left rock and roll completely. Got into classic rock for a long time and kind of ignored all the heavy stuff I'd listened to as a kid, which eventually put me into soul, funk, R&B, and then eventually into jazz. And so rock and roll has been very much a peripheral element to my uh, musicology. I don't go back to it a ton. Depending on where I'm DJing, if it's something that I need to play, I'll be going through old records from my childhood just for fun, seeing what's still applicable. And some stuff is like it's so cheesy now I can't touch it. Other stuff I'm like, oh, that's better than I remembered, you know. But it's fun going through old stuff sometimes. But sometimes bands from those days will release something new, and most of the time it's very starchy, stiff, lacks what it was that made them great initially. Whether it was soul and hunger, desperation, anger, those things often don't feel the same for someone who's 56 compared to when they were 22. Even like the sound of a metal band when they're hungry and desperate, the music they make reflects that. And when you become more financially stable, your music reflects that too. Listen to Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction versus Use Your Illusion. That's Elton John, November Rain. Listen to Twisted Sister before Stay Hungry, on the Stay Hungry record especially. It's so, and then they could never really get back there after that. They become mainstream, and their stuff was very saccharine after that. And Dee Snider kind of has said so himself. But like I said, I wasn't a big Tears for Fears fan in the '80s. My best friend Justin kind of was a pretty big fan. He's a DJ friend of mine, one of the guys who got me into DJing. And he's always like talking about Seeds of Love and the Raul record from the '90s where it's just Orzabal. And I was like, yeah, but I was already kind of moving on to different things by that point. So I really embraced it. Once I started DJing, though, I found Songs from the Big Chair a great place to supplicate an entire room. I want everyone here to be a little bit, okay, that's cool. Everybody wants to rule the world. It's so ubiquitous that almost anybody can enjoy it. And Shout Let It All Out, it's kind of the same thing. Head Over Heels, those songs are just so. I fell in love with Mad World. I saw it in a couple of films. I think one with like Donnie Darko, I think, has a cover of that song. But Mad World's such a cool song. And I got into that first record, The Hurting. I mean, Justin used to play a lot of songs from that live, Pale Shelter, and some other really cool songs on that. But I'll still never say I was a huge Tears for Fears fan. Even though I was DJing some of their bigger hits for people when it was right. And I'd since come to really respect their songwriting and playing. I still was never the guy who really had dug deep into their story and who they were and gotten to know them. I knew the hits. I kind of knew especially Big Chair pretty well. But it was never like something where I'm like, yeah, I'm a big Tears for Fears fan. There's a lot of stuff I DJ because it's right, you know. And you DJ because you like it and acknowledge that it has a purpose and it has a place in the world. But it doesn't mean you've necessarily embraced it as your own personal stylings. I have husky hair all over me. I can wash something and 2 days later it's covered in dog hair. And it's white dog hair on a black hoodie. So that's why I look like a vagrant. Uh, so anyway, Tears for Fears, again, it was not a love thing. It was just they're very talented, and I like their songwriting. And there was undoubtedly, they were more than just a new wave band. You know, they weren't just a synthesizer-driven band. The first record has a lot of synths on it. The second record was much more of a guitar-driven pop rock record, but with great songwriting and amazing production. And I guess Roland Orzabal is kind of a stickler for the finite minutia. Like he's got everything has to be just perfect. I think Kurt Smith is a little bit less so, which is funny because Kurt Smith is so much neater looking, how he's cropped and looked and appears. Kurt's very well trimmed, put together. And Orzabal has always been a little bit looser in his appearance, and especially nowadays, Orzabal's hair is long and white, the beard, and Kurt's still kind of slim and trim. Of course, they had a falling out for quite a long time, and they started touring together, I think, in 2010 or so. And I think my real relationship with them grew in the last 5 years because I was seeing stuff on YouTube of them playing live in festivals in Holland and England, and just how great these songs were live and how well they could sing them and replicate them live. I always love a band that can play their songs live. Whether you're Iron Maiden or whether you're Tears for Fears, if you can play those songs live, that's always something that I respect that. You know, man, they sound good. Listen to Motley Crue live, and you get a very different experience. Although there's this last concert in LA I was watching the other day by Motley Crue, and I swear they overdubbed the guitars because the songs sound like the songs. It sounds really good. I've never heard Motley Crue sound so good live. So I'm guessing there's some overdubs on that, but who cares? It sounds good, you know. It's not a criticism, you know, it is what it is. And part of why Crew doesn't sound great live is because they're so high energy and it's a party, so they're rolling around the stage and entertaining as much as they are playing. And so some overdubs probably serves them well. So anyway, watching the Tears for Fears live, I was like, man, these guys really have. So you can always feel Orzabal's connection to his lyrics, his words. Smith has a great voice. Orzabal has kind of a hunger, like a John Lennon voice, with some desperation and some sincerity. And Kurt Smith is probably a bit more McCartney with that softer sound and still a sincerity, but it's a more of a light-hearted, less desperate, less on the edge, I feel. So, like I said, I watched some stuff on them on YouTube, and then recently, a month or so ago, I popped onto YouTube and popped one of the new songs from this new record. I was like, oh, okay. And of course, the first song I heard was The Tipping Point. And you do a little research and you find out that Orzabal lost his wife recently from a combination of Alzheimer's and alcoholism. And he also mentioned how he used to sit with his wife and drink a bottle or three of wine between the two of them every night. And there was a sense of guilt in his voice. He just felt like, I helped contribute, you know what I mean? I didn't realize what we were doing. That's just what I was picking up from how he was speaking. You know, you could see he was mad at himself, and he hurt. And when you watch the Tipping Point video, when you see he's got this kind of thing going on. He's so, the music's healing. The music's therapy. And then I think these last 10 years, with Kurt being back in his life, to have that dear friend that you can confide in and help share your sorrow with. And sometimes you don't even need to discuss your sorrow with your good friend, just not being there as a medication. And so I think the music for Roland especially was just an escape and a place to heal and a place to vent, which relates to jazz greatly because jazz is that for Black America. It was a place of safety. And so Roland's passion and his pain from losing his wife, who obviously he loved dearly, it fuels not just the Tipping Point, but it fuels a lot of the songs in this record. And from what I've heard some interviews, I guess they've been working on some of these songs for years. But COVID kind of gave them this open, vacuous time where they could really kind of work on this stuff and really kind of put it together. And it's a great selection of 10 songs, and there's kind of a narration to it. Uh, there's Roland, there's Kurt. They both look pretty good for their age, I gotta say. But then I heard the next song was "No Small Thing," and the video for that's very powerful and riveting with a lot of street protests and just a lot of video footage that really kind of drives home some of what No Small Thing is about, talking about freedom and where we are in the world right now. Then long, long time, Break the Man, the pain of what he's going through, My Demons Don't Get Out Very Much. And then he follows this up on side 2 with the opening track called Rivers of Mercy. And I'll be honest, Rivers of Mercy kind of almost moved me to tears. And they welled up numerous times while I'm listening to it. And this is it. And it's got this kind of vocal piano intro here that doesn't really tell you what's about to happen. It's about to drop into these somber minor chords here. Right here. It just got that beautiful melancholic washing of the warm waves over you. And the lyrics are part of the magic here. Not only is the music got that quality, he's saying, drop me into rivers of mercy. And as a man approaching 50, I would be completely dishonest if I didn't say, sometimes, Cosmos, dear Lord, grant me mercy. Because gosh knows I've made some mistakes. Gosh knows I've hurt some people. God knows I've made mistakes with my parents. I've made mistakes as a parent. I've made mistakes with past lovers. Even with my current wife. No one's perfect. And I think me and my wife have a pretty special thing. And we've been faithful to each other. There's never been anything like that. But you still make mistakes and take people for granted. And don't always acknowledge your role or take responsibility for things. And so he's pleading with the powers that be, whoever you are, drop me into a river, not a tear, not a stream, a river of mercy. Because, gosh, man, and I feel like it's directly linked to how I heard him speak in that interview about drinking with his wife all those years. He feels such a burden, a shame, a guilt. And I don't want to speak for the man, but that's what his art's saying to me. And he just wants forgiveness. And you can't believe in something you don't believe in. You have to be honest about it. And so he's just taking this broad approach to it, saying, Cosmos, whoever, wherever you are, grant me mercy. Please understand the stressors and the mistakes I made weren't always willful, and that there was other things in my life, other pressures that made me do bad things at times. Because we've all made those mistakes. And I think as we get older in our years, it becomes something we feel like, man, I hope something somewhere can understand that I made mistakes, but I wasn't trying to. I wanted to do better all the time. And I wish I would have done better more of the time than I did. And hopefully some of the good things we do in life will balance that judgment, but we have to live with ourselves. And so I feel like this record for Roland especially was just a real statement of humility and the need for forgiveness and the need for mercy. And the whole record, I find, My Demons is kind of an up-tempo number on the first side. The Tipping Point's a great video. Although I think they produced most of this themselves, along with a guy by the name of Charlton Pettis. But it's really a wonderful listen. It's really a wonderful listen with the strong emotional content. It's right there on the sleeve, especially, like I said, Roland. And Kurt provides wonderful harmonies that are ghosting behind Roland a lot of the time. Just wonderful stuff. So I can't recommend this record enough to people who are looking for something melancholic but mature with a spirituality to it, that's got some depth and yet it's got some pop sensibility. And that wonderful opening up right there where it goes into, I think that's a major right there. It opens up into uh, the mature songwriters. They know how to write. They know how to keep it interesting and how to change a vocal pattern on a verse. Sorry, a little bit of a cough there. But yeah, definitely check this record out. I'm going to throw some jazz here on the end of this. I'll be right back. So I'll talk to you about a pretty rare record right now. The other end of the spectrum, I guess you could say. Bess Bonnier. She's a pianist from the Detroit area. This is her one record for the Argo label. And it's number 632, which probably puts it in early 57. Early Argos are rare, fun records. Just a great player. It's a trio setting here. She was a Detroit school teacher much of her life. Just to read a little bit of this to give you guys some knowledge here. Well, it's one of my favorite album covers, and probably my favorite Argo album cover as well. It's called Theme for the Tall One. But let's just read you a little bit of this here. To arrive at the threshold of one's career at age 29 would seem a little tardy for many musicians, but to Bess Bonnier, it seemed a natural age. She's been in music since she studied it in Braille class in Detroit public schools, and many times since. Bess had to use downright pluck and insistence to advance herself in music. As a 13-year-old, for example, Bess was asked to play with the band for a Navy benefit dance, and for some inexplicable reason, the fuzzy-faced band trooped in 3 hours late. Young Bess had showed her stuff alone, however, by playing piano in her inimitable beginner's style, just to keep the party going. The sailors were happy, and Bess's choreo, if not her ability, had been established. Bess, at 16, knew nothing of jazz, but wanted to in the worst way. Also, after a tryout, eyesight's not what it once was. After a tryout, she suffered those unique, searing pains of adolescence when she was told she wasn't good enough for a jazz combo. Bess vowed to learn jazz piano, and thereupon did. A few years later, when she was studying music in college, her professors told her that they didn't think jazz was very feminine. Sorry, my son has this little virus, and I've obviously picked up a little bit of it. I'm okay, though. She was told that jazz was not very feminine and Bess would pay more attention to her studies. Bess at the time was happy to be in the company of a group of unlettered jazz musicians at the Chatterbox, a soda and hamburger spot of the period, and she recalls her experience of surviving some rough people in some rough situations, but loving it all. Bess Bonnier's 18-year involvement with music has considerable range. Early days of learning by lesson and rote, innocent and awkward introduction to jazz, grubbing for fees of $2 and up, playing at the YWCA in Ukrainian, Polish, and Italian weddings, playing for fun and joints, finally playing for money and joints, and now her first LP, Theme for the Tall One. Some of her best and most satisfying stints were with Dizzy Gillespie, Stan Getz, Lord El Grey, and Frank Rosolino. All well-traveled gents, but Bess insists you don't have to travel to develop. Four walls anywhere, she explains. Bess says jazz was a disease with me at 17. She had no piano, so she practiced in room 323 at the Northern High School, a school with a 75% Negro enrollment. She lived in a strong Negro environment from then into her 20s. Playing jazz scientifically is ridiculous, Bess maintains. Her own music reflects this belief. Her style is close to that loosely called Negro music, warm, swinging, and primitive. Her taste in music, however, are Catholic. In her salad days, she memorized entire concertos, 50 to 60 pages of music. She's fond of Bach, Prokofiev, and a full range of folk music. Dixieland and the vocals of Crosby, Sinatra, Como, and Cole. Bess doesn't even complain much about the noise of rock and roll. So again, jazz has a lot of stories that are like this, of very talented musicians that barely make it through the landmines of life to establish themselves as a musician. And it takes a lot of love and dedication and perseverance to be a jazz musician, to be a musician, period. But to be a woman in the jazz world in those years, and if I remember, she's a white gal, so she's a white gal in a black high school, which takes some perseverance in and of itself. But the music is a connection. It's a powerful thing, and as you can hear, she can play. She's got that boogie down, man. And being around the black people gave her that, as they said here, that primitive swinging soul. What was it? So anyway, it's a great record, great cover. I'm not sure how tough it is to find. I found it fairly quickly, but there's probably not a lot of people looking for it. So I don't think there's that many out there. It's just not that highly in demand. If you can find this for 15, 20 bucks, I would grab it. Just a great player. And it's a part of the jazz story. He's in between records on these labels. They don't record anybody that can't play their ass off. There's too many people that could play to record people that couldn't play. This time and era, the people who were players, and they knew how to do what they were doing. And so Bess Bonnier is a great example of the in-between crack artists in jazz who get overlooked, get forgotten, never get reissued, and way too much of the jazz consuming public and interest is just from what's being reissued. It's I don't get it. I don't understand that philosophy. Like, there's so much jazz out there that's available. It's like we don't know about it unless it's on a reissue program. Maybe you start looking in different places, people, and trying to find the architects and the role players of this music that have been forgotten, because you want to pay the huge money for them, and they're every bit as talented. You know, talent is a weird thing, and in jazz, it's only a part of the story. Your personality, your environment, and of course, how you handle your experiences within that environment are all going to be magnified in what you play and how you say it. And so you can just feel this gal saying, playing piano for a living, that's the gravy train. I've taught in inner city Detroit. You know what I mean? I got this. And again, she played with some pretty big cats there with Wardell Gray and Dizzy Gillespie. But just sadly, the pages of time have forgotten her. And so that's partly why I hope this channel matters to people, is we do try to talk about records like that have very little appeal or any collectability, aside from being a really cool, rare old Argo. And Argo is, of course, one of the great Chicago jazz labels of all time. And that Argo discography from 600 through about 750, that's as good as anything on any other label. It's not as well known as Blue Note or Impulse, but it's quality stuff. I'm gonna end this here. My coughing's a little bit annoying. I apologize, guys. But y'all be safe. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit that like. You guys, does that bell ring for you guys? I'm not sure. I've had a few people say they can't. I don't know. Let me know about that. But I'm not that good at that technical side of this thing. Oh, look, Mama's here. Mama the cat. Where are you? There you are. She don't come down here very often. Mama's kind of her own little pink-nosed queen. She deigns to visit us today, so we should feel privileged to have Mama's company. She's a pretty girl. But she doesn't need the humans as much as some animals do.